I'm going to start off in a way that's going to immediately create some division in this room, and it's okay. You're going to immediately have a feeling and thought about me, and I would apologize, but you know my personality. It doesn't hurt my feelings anyways. So I'm going to start off like this. I love conflict. Some of you, like, immediately are like, yep, I was going to talk to him after service, but not anymore. And some of you are like, yeah, let's go. Let's roll. And I'm married to a person that, and she can hear this in the other room, so I'm not even, like, talking behind her back. I'm talking through the screen. So, like, I'm married to a person who runs away from conflict, and I won't even make you raise your hand because the people who hate conflict won't raise their hands anyways. But everyone in this room identifies a certain way with conflict. And here's the thing with me, like, I love conflict so much. I've got a sister who is, like, moderate, but a little more liberal on the moderate side, and a mom who's extremely conservative, and I like to just, did you guys, like, I'll put in the family group chat, which those are the worst, by the way, and you silence them, and you're the bad person. I'll put in the group chat, like, did you guys hear what Trump just did? And just, I just like to see, I know I'm a horrible person. It's great. And I just love that kind of stuff because I think it's funny. And I'll do that, but also I love conflict because I think it does genuinely get you to a place of resolvement. And you can disagree with that. You'll be wrong, but you can disagree with that. And because my wife, she grew up in a household where they didn't talk about anything. Like, they acted in the vein of, if we don't talk about it, it didn't happen. Right? And then my parents, my mom's a mental health counselor. My dad was a pastor. Now he's a life coach. So it was all like, how does that make you feel? And what does Jesus think? So, like, we talked about everything. And it's one of those things where, like, conflict was just kind of embedded in us. And for her, it was like just straight retreat. That was embedded in her. And so, like, there's always this rub and pull. But I'm going to tell you, as we get through here, we're going to talk through division. We're going to talk through conflict a little bit. But we're going to start on the other side of it, peace. We often think that peace comes after the hard thing is over. This can be a conflict. This can be a hard, difficult conversation. This can be just a difficult situation. Like, you got through that hard season in life, and you're like, and you breathe. Like, again, I'm not going to make you raise your hand, but, like, I want you to think, how many of you actually do this? Like, whether it's physical or, like, in your mind, you're like, like, my wife is reeling with the fact that we have a sixth grader and a sophomore. She's like, but we only have 3 more years with her. And I'm like, and we only have 3 more years. Like, I'm on the other side. I'm like, we're close. We, one down, one to go at that point, right? Like, that's how I feel. But she's like, where I'm like peaceful about it because, like, I know how we've raised them, and we're at the place now where we're starting to transition the oldest to, like, you have to start owning pieces of your life. Right? And I just trust what we've done and trust what God is doing in her life, right? So I have a peace over that, where she is just reeling from it, like, all week. That's all she was thinking about. And next year, our oldest can drive our youngest because they'll be on the same campus, because Veterans Middle and Veteran High. And I'm like, yeah, they can just drive each other. And she goes, no, I will still drive the middle schooler. And I'm like, why? She goes, don't take it from me. Like, she is still right here, right? Like, she's still holding on. She's not in the peace. But, like, it can happen, and you think the peace is coming, but it's not quite there yet. In fact, this is the problem. We're not living in peaceful anticipation. Like, that's what we think. Like, we're just anticipating the peace coming. We're living with 1,000 competing voices. And the reason I know this is, like, football season is coming in 4 weeks. So excited. And I know, like, I've seen all the reports and stuff. They're like, Georgia is back. And I know the fact is they're not. But 1,000 voices will tell you that they are. I know. I'm starting it early because we have an event coming, right? So, like, I know those competing voices in sports or politics, which, holy cow, midterms, have you guys already seen? Like, all the ads? I'm like, oh, I'm so over this, right? Competing voices. So if you can have enough competing voices happening in your life, getting control of those moments, you're never going to get to the peace that you anticipate. You're just always on the edge. Like, one of the easiest ways to feel safe in life is to find people who see the world the same way we do. But that's also one of the worst things that you can do. This is called isolation, or an echo chamber, which we'll talk about here in a second. Like, COVID was one of the best and worst things, right? Like, for my wife, she's like, can we just go back to those days? Because she's an introvert. And she's like, I just love the fact that I didn't have to people all the time. And me, I was going stir crazy, built a lot of things in our house, a lot of things. But how you approached COVID, there was dividing lines. You remember this, right? Like, it's still kind of happening a little bit, like how you thought about the vaccine or wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. And trust me, we're not, that is in the past. We're not bringing that up. But like, it automatically puts you in a bucket, whether you agreed with those ideations or not. Like, COVID was one of the biggest divisions that we've had as a country or as the world, but like, you started to feel safe when you found your people that felt the same way, because you were like, look, all these people can't be wrong. You're like, no, they can still all have the wrong information, right? And all still be wrong. It's like all the Georgia fans, they can still be wrong, right? Like, we think safety is set if we have enough people seeing the world the way we do. But really, the issue is this. We just create an echo chamber. Like, community is good, but the wrong community can become an echo chamber in our lives. And what that is just people regurgitating the same information that you want to hear. Like, just look at Twitter. Just look at, I guess, X now, right? I can't get out of it. Look at X. Look at Facebook. Look at, if you're a TikTok fan, like, you can get into the doom scroll, and like, it's the same, algorithm that's feeding you. It's the echo chamber, right? Like, their job is to keep you connected for as long as possible. And so they're going to feed you the continuous same echo chamber that you feed into. And what eventually happens is community becomes a huddle. And huddles are great. Like, I played football all the way through high school, and I know you can tell, like, such a specimen, right? And like, the huddle is phenomenal because it puts everyone on the same page, right? Like, you need the huddle. Like, I don't know how they do it. I'm sure you've seen this. Like, they hold the boards up, and I'm like, that's a sandwich. I don't know what that means, right? But when people huddle, like, you get people on the same page, you get them operating in the same way. Like, that's a good huddle. But the other side of that is a huddle can also become a influence that just regurgitates the same information. Like, the huddle feels like peace. It really does, because everyone inside it already agrees with us. And here's the thing. I want you to feel this. This is going to hurt a little bit, but you need to hear it and you need to feel it. Church can become this. Like, any church can become this. Like, you just isolate yourself around people that think and feel the same way you do. So you're like, oh, this is just how the world is. No, that's how your world is. Maybe not the world. Like, we don't have to hate people in life to become divided from them. We just have to stop understanding them. And that's the issue, is you become so isolated and so inundated with your own thoughts and ideas that you just stop even caring what the other side thinks. And so you become your own echo chamber. Like, this is the problem. We all want a less divided city. Like, Michael Jackson wrote a song about this, like, all the world coming together. Like, we all agree with that. We're like, yeah, the world should become, better. But we all keep choosing smaller worlds in our lives. We all keep isolating ourselves to the same circles that we always have enjoyed because it feels safe. And safe isn't always better. Sometimes conflict is better. And I know, like, probably half the room is like, you're wrong. I'm like, maybe. But maybe we've all done such a bad job at seeing the other side of it that we've created divisions without even knowing it. Like, when the huddle becomes our identity, anyone outside of it becomes a threat. My wife and I have a mutual friend, and I'm not going to call it all out because, again, there's probably all kinds of opinions in here. And a certain candidate won the presidential election, and she was so distraught, she actually had to go into counseling over it. And listen, I get it. Like, we can have very strong opinions and thoughts on things. Like, there's nothing wrong. Like, there can be left, there can be right, there can be moderate, middle, there can be everything else. But when your identity becomes so isolated in that one thing that, like, you have to get counseling because everything else is a threat, there's something wrong with your huddles. And here's how it breaks down. Like, this is where it's going to hurt. You ready? Identity attached politics. Like, we all know this and we all feel this. And I'm just going to call it what it is. Right, left, everyone's the issue. Because politics is all about dividing people to get their agenda passed, right? And then we create segments in that. We start to look at people differently because they voted one way or they agree one way. Like, when we become so identified by our politics, that's an issue. Here's a second one, denomination-attached faith. I grew up in, it's called the Christian church, and everyone's like, we're all Christians. I'm like, yeah, but this is like the Christian church, not like the only Christian church, but like that's the title, right? And so it was like non-denominational. It was a denomination, right? They all believed the same thing, operated the same way, and like if you didn't believe that, you were wrong. I remember like the first time I worked at a non-Christian church, my dad was like, you know you're going to hell for teaching those things. He's come a long way since then. He's in a great place. But like he got so attached to some of the denominational things that it became his faith. Like the fact that I wear jeans and a t-shirt, I am sure there's people that have either walked into here or they've seen the videos and they're like, oh, sinner. I'm like, you're right. Jesus never preached in jeans. That is correct because he wore a robe, right? It's like, we get so attached to things that are not faith-based, but we make it our identity. Like I've seen churches in this area, not calling them out because I'm sure we do things too, right? Like they blast all over Facebook preferences on things and how they feel about certain lifestyles and things. And they're like, if you believe this or act this way, don't even walk into our church. Like they put that on social and I'm like, whoa. Like, do they not know that we're all sinners, right? Like Jesus came for the sick, not for the healthy, right? Like we get so attached to how things should be because it's how we were raised. In fact, like I went to a Christian college and it was after I went to that Christian college that I realized some of what they taught me wasn't biblical. It was just preference. And some of what you're living your life off of isn't biblical. It's just preference. Like, remember when Jimmy first led worship here? He's like, am I allowed to wear a hat? I'm like, just please wear clothes. I don't really care, right? Like, that's the focus. We would really be the talk of the area if that wasn't the case. And he's like, oh, cool. It's like, but some people, they're like, oh, a hat. I'm like, it's fine, right? Like, because it's not about this. Like, our faith is in Jesus, not like what a denomination or a person deems as our faith. But we get so wrapped up in that, right? Third one, we've talked about this, echo chambers that influence the huddle. Like, this is the big thing. You're going to see this time and time again. Like, you get into the same circles and they say the same things, and that just becomes your identity and who you are. Like, this is the division that's happening. And it's not just in the world, it's in the church. And so we think that we're isolated away from it, but like that isolation is just creating more of it. And so as we look into this, I want you to hear this. When your focus strays, your foundation decays. So when your focus is on the wrong things and it strays to the wrong things, it's not Jesus. Because I'm going to tell you, those three things, that's not Jesus. Like, Jesus didn't come and like create the Baptist church or the Catholic church or the Christian church or he created the church, right? Like, he didn't create politic ideations. He created a one faith and one group, right? Like, he didn't create an echo chamber. He created his way. Like, if our focus isn't on that, that's when the foundation starts to crack and decay. And that's where people look at the church and they're like, oh, they're just horrible people. It's because they see that. So as we get into this, so this whole series is built around 1 Peter. And I would encourage you, like, we're still going to be in 1 Peter chapter 1, but like there's 5 chapters, 5 weeks. You can read chapter a week. I believe in you. And Peter walked with Jesus for 3 years. His life was completely, radically changed, and I'm going to hit that here in a second. And then 30 years later, he writes 1 Peter. So like eventually we're going to be in 1 Peter, but like these stories that we're talking about building up to it, it influenced who he was over those 30 years. So like this wasn't like Peter woke up one day and was like, oh, everything's great. It took him 30 years to really work through some of the things that they're facing. You want to know what they're facing? And we're going to hit this, but like they're facing, and what he's writing to the churches, the Roman Empire is just holding control. Like there's politics at play at every way. Like the politics are controlling the narrative and creating a division between Christians and everyone else. Does that feel familiar? A little bit, right? What they're facing is poverty all over the place. Like people can't pay for things. That's why like the church was so important back then, because the church disrupted the system. It was essentially an end to the welfare system because it fixed the needs of people. There was no orphanage. Like they took care of the orphans and the widows and those that were down and out. And so like that's one of the strains that they're facing. They're facing exhaustion. Like it's a world of just straight exhaustion. Does that feel familiar right now? Like everything that we're facing today is what these churches were facing. And when he's writing, he's not writing to just one church. He's writing to a group of churches in 1 Peter, like 5, 6 churches, maybe 6, 7, somewhere in there. And thank you. Some of you got it. I appreciate that. My kids go, you're not cool. I'm like, I know. I stopped being cool a long time ago when I squatted and my skinny jeans ripped. That's when I stopped being cool. But they, He's writing to these churches because they're all facing the same struggles that we're facing today. And how did he get to this place? Because he walked with Jesus and he learned from the one who created everything. So we're going to back up in Matthew, and then we're going to hit 1 Peter. If you guys have your Bibles, it's Matthew chapter 14. Let me kind of set the stage for you. They just get done feeding the 5,000. So everywhere Jesus goes, there's a crowd. There's 5,000 people, and they just counted men. That's not a distinction against women or children. Don't come after me. That's just what they did. I'm sorry, I can't change that. But probably more or less 20,000 or so people that they're feeding, which is crazy, right? And so Jesus just multiplies the food and creates this miracle, and there's just exhaustion. Like, could you imagine having the needs of 20,000 people on you all the time? And that's what they're facing. And then there's backbiting. Like, they're arguing, like, it's almost like siblings. Like, hey, who's the most important in the kingdom of heaven? They're like, we're not even dead and in heaven, but they're arguing about that, right? So they're fighting with each other, and then they're also fighting with the religious leaders, because the religious leaders are like, you're not doing it right. And they're like, well, that doesn't matter because that's not right anyways. It's what we're fighting today. So, like, all these things are going on, and they're just exhausted. So Jesus puts them on their way, and that's what happens. Matthew chapter 14, verse 22 says, immediately after this, after feeding the 5,000, Jesus insisted that his disciples get back into the boat and cross to the other side of the lake while he sent the people home. He took care of the people and looked at his disciples and said, you guys need to go take care of yourselves. Like, that's important to hear, because you're going to see this rhythm. So here's the thing you need to know. This happened to me. Like, the last couple of weeks have been exhausting for us as a church. Like, there's been so much change. And I can tell, like, the last 2 years I've been medicated, I've been on top of that. The last 2 weeks, though, some of that stuff's slipping back out. Why? Because when you're exhausted, you start to let loose of things, right? So, like, even, like, my wife here recently, she's like, hey, just so you know, like, you're getting a little sharp with us. It's like, it makes sense. The church is, like, going crazy in a great way, because we're growing like crazy. And then, like, kids are starting back at school, so you're waking up at 6 a.m., and, like, I know that I'm exhausted and I need to take time for myself, because you can't pour out what you haven't been poured into. We've talked about that, right? So, like, Jesus sends them on their way, the disciples, so that they can take care of themselves, and then he takes care of the people. Verse 23 says, after sending them home, he went up into the hills by himself to pray. So then Jesus takes care of himself. Like, that's important. And how this was situated, this lake had mountain ranges all around it. And the mountain that Jesus went on was considered the mountain on the high place. So they were like, this is the closest that they can get to heaven in that region. So, like, when he goes to pray, he's literally getting as close as he can to the Father. And so as you're reading this, you're like, that's cool. Like, he took time to pray. But it goes further. We find this out later in Luke chapter 22, and we're not going to read that today. But, like, Jesus was praying specifically for the disciples. Why? Because they were facing spiritual warfare. It was exhaustion. It was like the lifestyle, the pace of everything. And when that happens, divisions start to anchor in, because you start getting off focus and offline, and you just dig into things that don't matter, right? So he's interceding for the disciples and praying for the disciples. And on this mountainside, he can see everything in the lake. So he's watching the disciples, which is creepy and awesome all at the same time, right? Like, could you imagine, like, they're kind of fighting? He's like, I saw that, right? Like, and, like, while he was there alone, he's praying over them, right? Verse 24. Meanwhile, the disciples were in trouble far away from land, for a strong wind had risen, and they were fighting heavy waves. I want you to hear this. Do you know when you're going to be creating silos the most? When you're fighting the heaviest things. Why? Because you're not at your best. Because the things that you didn't think mattered start to matter. And I know this is true because it happens to me. You look back and you're like, why did I hold so tight to that? Because you weren't protecting yourself. This is where the disciples are. They're exhausted. They're at this place of, like, nothing is left, and now they're fighting for their lives. Like, many times what we're facing outside is a reflection of what we're fighting inside. So if you're looking at your life like I was this week, where it's like things are coming out and I'm snapping and I'm not being the best, person sometimes, it's because I'm fighting things inside. And when I start to identify that, I can get those things in line and resolve the conflict, resolve the division. When you're fighting things on the outside, everything is going to rage inside. And for the disciples, it was true. Like, we've talked about this, like exhaustion, emotional responses, and we're backbiting, like they're fighting against one another and the religious leaders, their own personal struggles. Like, we know a lot about Peter, but they all had personal struggles. And identity and spiritual warfare, they were taught under the Jewish culture, the Jewish religion, and now Jesus is disrupting all of that. Like, they're fighting all of this. You know what you're fighting? The same stuff. And so when you look at this, you're going to hold tight to things that you're like, why did I hold tight to those things? It doesn't matter. That's why here at Houston, we're like keep the main thing. Like, Jesus Christ is our Lord and Savior. And it's like, what do you think about predestination? I'm like, that's cool. Let's talk about it. It doesn't really matter at the end because if we're Christians, we're going to go to heaven, right? But like, let's talk about it. It's fun. Like, if you're creating an identity off of those things, it's the wrong things, right? So that's what's happening. Matthew chapter 14 says this. About 3 o'clock in the morning. So I went to a Christian college, forced to go to a Christian college. That's another story. But we had a rule, which I thought was stupid because I was an adult. I was 18, but I was an adult, right? They're like, no rated M or rated R games. I could almost understand that one. Probably shouldn't be playing some of those games. But we still did. We stunk them, but that's another story. And that school doesn't exist anymore, so they can't do anything to me. So the other rule, though, this was crazy. A 12 o'clock curfew. I'm like, I didn't have a 12 o'clock curfew in my own house. But I'm like, why? That's so stupid. And they literally would check your dorms to make sure you were there. I'm like, this is ridiculous. And then they had a security guard to make sure no cars were leaving. It's like, that's wild. And this was their philosophy. Nothing good happens after 12 a.m. I'm like, that's true. I've had Taco Bell after 12 a.m., and that does not sit well, right? Like, it used to, but now it just creates all kinds of issues the next day. And 3 o'clock in the morning, this is what you need to know. Man, if you're at your most exhausted moment, and then it's in the middle of the night, and then you're fighting for your life, you know what you're not doing? You're not guarding yourself well. So in your moments, like, other people probably aren't guarding themselves well, but like, you're the one that's driving the hope. You have to drive in a hope-filled way. You have to protect yourself in order to have these moments, right? Jesus came towards them walking on the water. We're not going to really break this down. That's for another discussion, but crazy, right? Like, Jesus is just walking on the water. When the disciples saw him walking on the water, they were terrified, which they should be. In fear, they cried out, "It's a ghost." Reasonable reaction, by the way. I don't know the last time I saw someone walking on the water, but I think I'd be frightened, right? But this is what I love about Jesus. He's praying in the mountainside for his disciples. He's watching them, knowing that they're exhausted, knowing that they're facing spiritual warfare, knowing that Satan's coming after them, because they're impacting the kingdom. And as he's watching them and they're fighting for their lives, he doesn't go like, "Oh, good luck. Hope that works out for you." No, he meets them in the middle of the storm. Like, in the middle of your moments, like the storms on the outside will expose the divisions on the inside, but like in the middle of your moments, like the moments that those storms are just being exposed, like that's what I love about Jesus. Like, he's meeting you in the middle of that storm. Now, it's up to you what you do with it, and we're going to see what happens. This is Matthew chapter 14, verses 28 and 29. Then Peter called to him, which this is nuts, by the way. "Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come to you walking on the water." "Yes, come," Jesus said. This is nuts. If this is your reaction, that's bold. If you're like, someone's walking on the water, let's walk together. I get it. It's Jesus. It's a little different, but like, that's crazy work. But to have that boldness, this is what's going on. The disciples are huddled in fear and clinging on to everything that they know to be true. And Peter goes, "I can't live a life like that. I've got to live a life separate. I'm going to go chill with Jesus on the water." It's crazy. So, next verse. So Peter went over to the side of the boat and walked on the water towards Jesus. But when he saw the strong wind and waves, he was terrified and began to sink. "Save me, Lord," he shouted. Like, people love to clown on Peter for this moment. And I get it, like you of little faith, we're going to read that here in a second, but the fact that he had the boldness to step out is a big deal. It's so easy to stay in the safety of your huddle. It's so easy to stay in the comfort of like keeping your divisions. But Peter didn't cling to the safety, he clung to Jesus. He clung to the hope. Looking at Jesus and looking at his situation, he goes, "I'd rather be on the water in the middle of the storm than in the boat in the middle of my chaos." Do you feel the same way, right? This is what Jesus says to Peter. He says, Jesus immediately reached out to him and grabbed him. "You have so little faith," Jesus said, Why did you doubt me? And this is where people sit at and they're like, man, yeah, Jesus the doubter, or Peter the doubter. This is what Jesus was really saying. He was saying, why did you doubt me? But what he's really saying is, why are you allowing your hope to be determined by your circumstances? Because the moment he started to sink was the moment he started to put his focus on the wind and waves. The moment that we start to sink and our division starts to take hold is the moment that we start putting our identity and our focus in circumstances or people. In fact, if your hope is attached to circumstances or people, guess what? Circumstances or people get to control your peace or get to control your hope. Like, if you're so glued to your politics that you can't fathom the fact that someone won and you just lose all control of life, you're probably glued to the wrong things and allowing that control to be in the wrong circumstances. If you're allowing people to disrupt your life in such a way that it just derails all the hope in your life, man, like your hope is attached to the wrong things. This is why division happens. It's not because like we're bad people or wrong people. We just put our hope in the wrong things. Like where your focus strays is where your foundation decays. And this is the issue. Our focus is not on the right thing. It's not on the hope that comes from Jesus. So this is how it influences Peter. You ready? Like we talked about this. Like he's talking to like 5 or 6 churches here, and he has 30 years of separation from this moment to where he's writing to these churches. This is where he starts. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 15. But now you must be holy. So this word holy simply means set apart. So we're going to read it like that. You ready? But now you must be set apart in everything you do, just as God who chose you is set apart. For the scriptures say, you must be set apart because I am what? Set apart. The world should know that you are Jesus followers because you are different than the world. But you know what the problem is? The church gets caught up in the same things that the world gets caught up in. We start to separate ourselves from one another because of these denominational ties or these structured fields. Or we start to look at people differently because they sin differently than we do. We start to attach ourselves by the people that we like rather than the people that we're called to. Like when Peter is writing to these churches, what he's telling them is like, I lived with Jesus. I lived through this. I had to rewrite my framework to match this. It's not easy, but it is necessary. Pressure can reveal who we are. And it does. Like, you know this. Like, when pressure hits, it reveals your weakest places. But without being allowed to decide who we become, pressure doesn't get the choice of who you become. And when you allow it to, your hope is in the wrong things. So if you're getting so glued to things because of the pressure in your life, guess what? You're sold out to the wrong things. Like, that's where division happens. Peter goes on and says this in verse 22. You were cleansed from your sins when you obeyed the truth. So now you must show sincere love. This sincere love is like sacrificial love to each other as brothers and sisters. Love each other deep with all your heart. Love each other that you're willing to go to battle for one another. When he's looking at this, like he's going back to the woman that we talked about last week that was bleeding for 12 years, that just needed to touch the robe of Jesus. And just loving someone like that was so disconnected from the world. Or looking at the beggars or the lepers or the prostitutes, the tax collectors. Like Peter saw this firsthand. And when he's talking about this, what he's saying is hope doesn't make us agree with one another. Like, you don't have to agree with people's lifestyle. There's a lot of lifestyles I don't agree with. Like Bulldog fans, I don't agree with your lifestyle. I really don't. I really just don't. We still have yet to beat you, but still, I don't agree with you. But it does teach us to love people that we don't agree with. Like, I get it. It's really hard sometimes, right? Because we attach the wrong things to loving people. We attach these identity pieces to being able to love them. And you can love people without agreeing with them. So this week, this is what I'm going to leave you with, 2 questions. And it's going to pressurize you a little bit. Ready? Where do I go when I need someone to tell me I'm right? If you've got a huddle of people that just simply tell you you're right, it's not a good influence. Like, that's why community is so important, but the right community is the most important thing. Like, if you don't have people to correct you and to push on you, it's the wrong huddle. It's the wrong group. It's the wrong community. If you have people that are just like, no, you're right, like, be angry. You should key their car. Like, that's the wrong huddle, right? Like, just do it, don't get caught, right? Like, that was I'm just kidding, I didn't do that. But, like, you need people to push on you and to spur you because, like, The things that I believed when I was 20, I'm grateful that God loved me when I was stupid and 20, right? Because those things have changed when you live life and you experience life and you feel like, you figure out like, hey, maybe the things I thought weren't correct. I needed people to correct me. The other question is this: what has to happen for me to feel okay? If life has to happen a certain way for you to be okay with it, you're tied to the wrong things. Like if your hope is caught up in circumstances or people doing the right things or things going the right way, you're caught up in the wrong things. Like that is where division happens. Like this is ultimately what we have to do. Remember the hand that caught you. Like that's what I kind of glossed over this, but like what I love about this, we were talking about this a couple weeks ago. How long did Jesus allow Peter to kind of sink? Like, did his head go underwater? I probably would, because I'm kind of a jerk. I like the conflict. I talked about that, right? I'm sure Jesus didn't. But like, how far did Peter go under before Jesus saved him? I don't know. But I do know this is like in my own life, sometimes my head has to go underwater for me to realize that I need help. But you know who's always there? Jesus. Like, remember where your hope comes from, because when you remember that, you know what you do is you love people well, because you know how much that hope was needed for you. And that's where division comes out. Because if you're focused on division, or focused on hope, you know what you're not focused on? Division. If you're focused on hope, you know what you're not focused on? Whether people are falling in line. If you're focused on hope, you know what you're not focused on? If people tell you you're right, or like you get your happiness from people just building those scenarios up for you. Like, this is where it all comes to fruition. Like, this is why I think Peter was who he was. He remembered how much he needed that hope and how much he needed that grace, that his circumstances were the focus and not Jesus. And he goes, be set apart. Love people. Do it God's way. So, essentially, you know what this all comes down to? Hope for everyone. Like, this is what this is. And so when we're focused on that as a church, you know what happens? Gates of hell tremble. When we're focused on that as a church, you know what else happens? We're not arguing about things that don't matter. You know what happens when we're focused on that as a church? It's like we love people so well that we have stories like Stacy's. That I talked about this last week. I don't know if you guys heard this, but like she had a plan to end her life, and church was a last resort because someone invited her. So when she says, like, Jessica, who baptized her, saved her life because that invite saved her life, when she says house and church saved my life because it was a last-ditch effort, you know what she found? Hope. That's what's at stake. Not just for us, for everyone else. It's hope for everyone. So as a church, as a people, be focused on the right things. Don't allow division to be in the middle of that hope. God, I'm just so grateful that we have moments like this that we can be pushed on. God, as a person that needs that hope, God, I'm just so grateful for you, that you love me in spite of my brokenness and in spite of the things that I messed up, God. And I pray for me, God, I pray for our church that we just don't pour into that division, God. We don't push into the divisiveness. That we focus on the hope that we have through you. God, that we focus on the joy that we have through you, God, that we give you everything. And God, as a church, I pray that people don't know us by what we stand against, that they know us by who we stand for. And that's hope for everyone, God. It's in your name we pray. Amen.